Hi guys, my name is Kirsty. Welcome back to Upside Down Books, and yeah, welcome back to another book haul.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno di torno.
I would like to establish and petition for book buying to be included in the Olympic Games, because I actually think at this point I would be a pretty high contender. So yeah, I've got a lot more books to show you again, so I hope you're all excited for the ride, because oh my goodness am I excited to show you these books. For anyone who thinks I'm crazy and is astonished and just baffled by the number of books I'm buying, I agree, I concur, I also think I'm crazy. I went on my third and final holiday for the year, which of course included some book buying. So I hit up some of my favourite bookstores. I went down to the southwest coast of Australia, which is just the best place in the world. And I hit up some of my favourite bookstores, went book shopping with my dad. Always a bad combination. We both end up with so many books. So I've got all those to show you today, but that's like the last... Do you know what? I'm not going to tell you that that's the last big spree for the year, because I bet your bottom dollar I'll be back here next month with another one. I am actually finding it increasingly hard to remember all of the books to haul for you guys, so we're going to start with the audiobooks, then the ebooks, and then we're going to cross our fingers that I remember everything. So the first book I need to talk about will be my audiobook. Can I remember what it is? No, I can't. In fact, I think I have two audiobooks to talk about, and I'm pretty sure this is the last one I got, but yeah, I could be wrong. So the first thing I want to talk about is I actually got the audiobook for Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I have already read this, but it was the Audible Book of the Month, and I loved this book so much. It was one of my top 5 books in 2021, and I would love to reread it and see how they do things via audio, so I'm absolutely going to be rereading that probably this year, maybe early next year, depending on when I get to it. So excited. If you haven't read any Andy Weir yet and you like sci-fi, in fact, if you like reading and you haven't read Andy Weir, then I think that's all the premise you need. It is the most approachable, like, sci-fi that I've read, and it's not particularly basic. It's quite complex in what he's doing, but in a really humorous way. It's almost like if contemporary was sci-fi, it would be Andy Weir's books. I'm not going to tell you about the plot of this one. I think this book is best got into blind. The other audiobook that I picked up was Harrow the Ninth by Tasmin Muir. I read Gideon the Ninth like a month ago, and it was like my favourite book I've ever read. High praise indeed for that one. So of course I picked up the sequel. I'm reading this at the moment. I'm about halfway through and I have no idea what's going on. This series is bonkers. I'm actually really impressed that it's one of like the most popular, like the first book is one of the most popular books, or it's at least a very popular book, and everyone says it's a bestseller, but everything's a bestseller these days. These books are insane though, and they're totally not everyone's cup of tea. They're very much like the kind of books you go into expecting to not understand anything, and then eventually it all comes into place and it's like, wow, that was literally the best thing I've ever read. I really enjoyed book 1, and book 2 is way crazier. Like, it's literally an insane book. The main character is insane, and it's written partially in second person, so you did this, you did that. And I am just so excited to get to the end of it and see how it all ties up with what happened in book 1. It's a different character's perspective. Just loving it. And I love the audiobook production for these books is done so well. The narrator is just on point with the way that she portrays characters. So those are the audiobooks that I have collected since we last spoke. I've also picked up a few ebooks, and I think I might have forgotten to talk about them in my last haul, but honestly, as I said, I'm losing track of when I get books and which ones I've hauled. Okay, so there's just one ebook. I feel like I should have hauled this already, so if I have, just skip ahead, but it's The Mapmaker's Daughter by Claire Marchant. This one's coming out in September, and it's basically like, I want to call it a historical treasure hunt via a map. So I'm pretty sure there's a daughter of a mapmaker who finds a map and it leads her back into the past, and it's like interweaving, connecting stories, all the good stuff that we always enjoy. So I'm really looking forward to picking this one up relatively soon and having a read through. I'm really hoping for good things. I've had a really rough time with ebooks lately, so I could do with a really good one. The next book I want to talk about before we dive into the rest of the physical books is one that I was absolutely convinced that I've already hauled for you, because I feel like I remember doing it, but I haven't been able to find it in my previous hauls, so if I have already hauled this one, once again I apologise, but it is the June book for the Fairy Loot adult book only box. So if you subscribe to that one and you haven't seen your June book, though hopefully you've all received it by now, then skip ahead. And that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Isn't this beautiful? But it gets better because it's got obviously the sprayed edges and it's got a little like sort of quote down the side there. It's just gorgeous, and it is bright pink. Bright pink. I have such vivid memories of already hauling this one, but again, just can't work out of our heads, so we can just appreciate this one again. And there you go. It's a stunning book, so it's fine to look at, isn't it? This one is about witches, and it's adult fantasy, and like, if you read those kind of things, I don't think I need to say more than that. Let's dive into it. I've basically got a couple of review copies to show you. I've got two huge piles of books by my knees here. I've got my holiday book haul to show you. I have probably got other random things. Oh, I've got a book box to show you, and I've got a trade haul to show you. So I've done this before. There's my favourite secondhand bookstore in Perth is called Pulp Fiction, and it's the one in Whitfords for anyone who also lives in Perth, though I think there is another one, but I haven't been to it. You can trade in books, you get credit. Relatively familiar concept to many of us, but their bookstore in Whitfords is just so good. Like, their selection is always... I always get so many books from them, and literally this weekend, as I'm filming, again, went down with a dangerous duo, went down with my dad to go and trade in some duplicates that we'd managed to accidentally collect over the last however many months, and swap, like, get store credit and then get a couple of other books instead. I think we'll start mostly with the holiday book haul. So the first one is The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. I literally finished reading this today and I am obsessed. I love this book. This is set in Pompeii. It's about slavery, and it's more specifically set in a brothel. It follows the character Amara and all the women that she is in the brothel with, and their lives as prostitutes, being forced into slavery and essentially forced into being a prostitute and selling their bodies. Everyone's very unhappy, and it's like this really wonderful feminist piece of writing as the characters work out how they can better their situation, how they can sort of come to terms with their new situation in life, and how to survive. And I really, really enjoyed it. This was a really easy read, so if you're looking for historical fiction that you can sit down and just sort of blaze through, this is definitely a book you can do that with. It was not complicated to follow at all, but it was really, really well done, and it's just beautiful. So I highly recommend this for anyone who likes historical fiction, particularly as this is set in Pompeii before Mount Vesuvius erupted, so it's got like a sense of urgency from your perspective of a reader, because you know that eventually Pompeii won't exist, even though it has nothing to do with this book. I just feel like the setting adds a bit of drama for you. Okay, so the next book I picked up was something I got purely to make sure I've got a matching series, and that is The Blood Trader by Lynette Noni. Have I read the series yet? No, I haven't. Am I aware of how popular it is? Yes, I am. I do plan to read this. I'll probably do like a binge and just like embrace the crazy, but I haven't read it yet. I just really wanted to get the tall editions because I don't know, this year I've been really paranoid about getting mismatching series, because you get like the tall books and then like a year later they release the small ones, and then stressful. So I have a complete matching set and I'm very happy about this. The next one I actually got because I saw Reagan at Peru's Project reading this one, and she really enjoyed it, and when I saw it came out I thought it looked good, but her recommendation has me sold. Very literally. And that is The Good Left Undone by Adriana Trigiani, and I am a keeping. I was like on the fence about this one because of the cover. The cover doesn't have me super excited. However, this like white border is totally coming back into fashion. If you read historical fiction or just like contemporary fiction, general fiction, I feel like you'll start seeing this vibe happening a bit more. But I'm really keen to read it because I've seen highly spoken reviews of it. This one is sort of like a past-present flip-flop. So the main character is looking back into her mother's life during the war in Italy and some romances that she had, and I think it's going to be like a really engaging, I don't want to call it a family saga. I'm not really sure what the term is for this. When you have like a daughter and either a mother or a granddaughter and like a connecting story, they're always really quite good and enjoyable to read. So I love that this has an Italian setting. I've been really in the mood for Italian war fiction. It seems to be on the rise. I've read more of it lately, but yeah, I'm just hoping for a really good time in this one. I hope that I do actually end up enjoying it. The next one I got very much so on a whim, because I've seen it around like everywhere and I know there's good things about it, but I'd never, like, it hadn't gelled in my mind what the premise was, and I reread the blurb and I was like, I need to read this now. And that is Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. This one I love, right? Okay, I could marry the premise of this one. I would like people to write more books like this. I'm so excited to read it. So this one is all about a character who's basically fighting the like hangover effects of colonialism and trying to do heists to steal back art from museums that has been on display in like countries like, I guess, England and other places when like really they were stolen back in the day when they were taken. So he's taking them back to the countries they belong to. That is like generally the plot for this one. And ever since I watched that movie called The Monuments Men, I have been so intrigued by this. And there's been lots of other stories. I think it's The Lady in Gold, or there's some movie about a Jewish painting that got stolen, and there was a big case and she got it back. But anyway, I just really, really enjoy these stories because I think they're so relevant to today, and I think we're all very aware that a lot of art in museums is like a hot mess, and repatriation of artwork is such a complicated topic because we all know it should be with the original owners, but like they would just be like the most knotted ball of string to try and sort out. So in any case, I love that someone's written a book about this, and I am like so excited to read it. The next book I have to show you is one that caught my eye when I was researching my new releases for my blog, which is ozbooksnow.com, and I do that every month, and I think it was last month or the month before. I saw the book and I thought, wow, that book looks really weird, and what a weird cover for it, and that is Lampvoner by Otessa Mashfeg, and I think this, I don't know what it is, I've just suddenly decided that I absolutely love this cover. There's just something so weird and harrowing and uncomfortable about it that it gets me excited to read it. Maybe that just says something about me. This one's set in a village in a medieval fiefdom, and it is buffeted by natural disasters, and a motherless shepherd boy finds himself the unlikely pivot of a power struggle that puts all manner of faith to a savage test. So this one follows a character called Marek. He's the abused and delusional son of a village shepherd, never knew his mother, his father told him she died in childbirth, and he has an enduring bond with the blind village midwife. And this midwife called Ina has some gifts that extend beyond childcare, so she has a unique ability to communicate with the natural world. At this point, I'll admit, I stopped reading when I would like to read this. But she brings the transmission of sacred knowledge on levels far beyond those available to other villagers. But for some people, the home where she lives is a place of fear and somewhere to avoid. So I think we're going to get a really interesting sort of, as it says, power play relationship going on, and I am so keen to learn more about this one. There's going to be famines, there's going to be droughts, we've got Marek just falling into a lot of trouble, it seems. I don't really understand what the main plot of this is going to be other than just like absolute craziness, but I am excited. Of course I will show you it with the cover off. It has blue end papers, and it's just black with sort of silver writing on the spine. I haven't heard much about this. I'm purely going off my own vibes of excitement and the fact that it was on a table that suggested it was selling well in the bookstore, so of course I had to pick this up. This book, the next book, is one that I just kept seeing in bookstores, and eventually it just broke me down, and I thought, you know what, I have to get it. It's looked at me too many times. And that is Pandora, which is by Susan Stokes Chapman, and this one is obviously riffing off the story of Pandora's box. It is set in a jewelry shop. It is set in London in 1799, I believe, and there is a Greek vase that comes into I guess it's like a jewelry antique shop, and it comes into the store and it sort of opens up this whole world of secrets, and the more that the main character digs into it, the more she finds out things that are sort of challenging what she knew about her family and her world, and I just think it's going to be a good time. I've heard some good things about it, and it's got a nice little shimmery cover going on, so it's just pretty, like, I didn't really stand a chance. I think we can all agree that if you look at this book, I would say 5 times, then you're probably going to end up buying it. The next book I was so excited about. This book I have been like super hyped about, and it's one of my classic moves where I have become devoted to an author after reading one of their books. And that is Horse by Geraldine Brooks. So excited. This is a historical fiction book about horse racing, and I am like 10 levels of excitement about it for no reason other than the fact it's Geraldine Brooks. It sounds like it should be a profoundly boring book, but I read People of the Book like probably 10 years ago now, and I have, and I've said this before, religiously collected all of her books, and I've even started to get them in hardback now. So excited. This one has that colour end papers. I don't even know what you would call that. It's sort of like an uncomfortable pink. And it is blue with gold writing on the spine when it's naked. So this one, I'm gonna read it for you and then you can decide whether you think it sounds exciting. I trust her, I know it will be exciting. One day, maybe I'll have a Geraldine Brooks marathon because I really think I should. I'm not even going to mention the fact that they recently released all of her books, even though they're not related, all of her books in matching covers, so you can get like a matching set. So, I mean, you can all take bets as to how long you think it's going to take me to collect that set, because it's going to happen at some point. This one, a discarded painting in a roadside cleanup, forgotten bones in a research archive, and Lexington, the greatest racehorse in US history. From these strands of fact, Geraldine Brooks weaves a sweeping story of spirit, obsession, and injustice across American history. So set in Kentucky, 1850, New York City, 1954, and Washington DC in 2019. We have ooh, there's Australian things involved here. Can you tell I haven't actually read the blurb yet? Let's keep reading, shall we? So Kentucky, 1850, an enslaved groom named Jarrett and a bay foal forge a bond of understanding that will carry the horse to record-setting victories across the South, even as the nation reels towards war. An itinerant young artist who makes his name from paintings of the horse takes up arms for the Union and reconnects with the stallion and his groom on a perilous night far from the glamour of any racetrack. Then we get to 1954 in New York. We've got Martha, who's a gallery owner celebrated for taking risks on edgy contemporary painters, and she becomes obsessed with the 19th century equestrian oil painting, which obviously is from the Kentucky storyline. Then we're in 2019 in Washington. We've got Jess, who's a Smithsonian scientist from Australia, and Theo, a Nigerian-American art historian. They find themselves connected through shared interest in the horse, one studying the stallion's bones for clues, and the other uncovering the lost history of the unsung black horsemen who were critical to its racing success. Like, it kind of sounds interesting, right? It's sort of like got that museum art history vibe going for it. I don't know, I'm just excited. I think I have like a secret and unexpected interest in racehorses, even though I don't know how I feel about the sport. But anyway, I'm excited for that one. The next one was purely for collecting purposes, and that is the hardback edition of Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I actually read this when it came out in its ARC format and loved it, and this is such a beautiful hardback edition. I've not actually seen the hardback before, and it was in a secondhand store for pretty cheap, so I just thought, you know what? I love this so much. It's an African-inspired fantasy, so I just thought, I think that this is worth getting, and I'd love to get the sequel in the matching hardback one day, but we will see whether that happens. The next one is Trisha Levenseller's new book, which is Blade of Secrets. This is a small YA fantasy. I love Trisha Levenseller. She wrote The Daughter of the Pirate King and some other things which have been really popular, so when I saw her new book out, I thought it would just be rude if I didn't get it. This one is, I think, set in, I want to call it like a medieval fantasy setting. We got powerful warlords, magic, magical weapons, all the good stuff. I'm basically just expecting Daughter of the Pirate King, but like medieval fantasy instead. And I would be very happy with that. I then picked up some more Ranger's Apprentice books, so I have been trying to collect both editions of them, the old one and the new one. If you've been watching my book hauls religiously, and well done if you have. Yeah, you've probably seen some others before. So I've got books 2, 3, 6, and 8. So I think I just have book 7 and maybe 4. And then I'll have the complete set of all of them. I love Ranger's Apprentice. If you've not read this yet, then you very much so should. Should say that 2 of these from a secondhand bookstore, and 2 of them were first-hand. The next one is something that's caught my eye for ages, and I don't think I've ever actually read the blurb until I bought it, and that is Firekeepers Daughter by Angelina Bowley, and this one is actually not fantasy. This one is set in America, and the main character is First Nations, First People in America, and it's sort of an FBI like mystery going on, her getting tangled up with the authorities as stuff is going on. I assume it's going to be a bit of an interesting like interconnectedness with like protecting family and working with authorities, so I am really keen to read this one and see what kind of genre vibes it gives off, because I've seen a lot of people reading and liking this one, but I somehow didn't know that that was what this is about. The next one is one I am literally like, oh, so excited. It's so unique and refreshing, and that is I, Mona Lisa by Natasha Solomons. Now this is like really falling into the genre of books that I'm really enjoying reading at the moment, which I'm classifying as like medieval feminism, and this is basically looking at the Mona Lisa. I believe we'll get to look at Da Vinci as well, but it's looking at the forgotten woman behind the painting and imagining what her life was like, who she was, and how she was involved in the history of the creation of the Mona Lisa. And I love that. I love reimagining this. This to me falls in the same category as Sue Monk Kidd's the Book of Longings, which imagined the wife of Jesus. And so when you kind of insert these women that were definitely present in history but we have no real records of, I think that's really exciting. I don't know much about the history of the Mona Lisa itself, so I have no idea if there's any records or facts involved in this book, but I'm sure that I will find out as I read it. I am just, yeah. The tagline for this I love as well. It says, "You've seen my smile, now hear my voice." So I'm ready. I am ready in every way to read this book and enjoy it, and isn't it a stunning book. The next one I actually got in a bargain bucket, and I was so excited because I've been putting off buying it because it's a little bit expensive, and that is She Who Became the Sun by Shirley Parker Chan. I don't know, this is like a book that's, because it's the taller edition, it's been sold for pretty expensive in Australia, and I've just been chickening out of getting it, so when I saw it on sale, I thought now is the time to get this book. So this one is actually set in 1345 in China, and we are going to have, I think, a girl pretending, like stealing the identity of her brother to disguise as a male novice and avoid her fate. And I think she's gonna, I don't know, I'm just sort of expecting Mulan vibes. And like as soon as I see 14th century fiction and a girl pretending to be a boy, I get very excited, because that's very much so in the vein of some work that Tamora Pierce has done, or even like Philippa Gregory. It's just given me good vibes with authors that I've really enjoyed, and this has been like so well received, so I cannot wait to finally read this and see what all the fuss is about. Right, the next one, I would love to know if you guys have ever heard of this before, because I've had my eye on this because I just think it sounds fantastic. And this is definitely an historical fiction heavy haul because I'm just obsessed with the genre more so than usual. And that is Outlawed by Anna North. And this one is set, I'm gonna say it's probably Texas, but I'm gonna say somewhere in the South in America. It's set in 1894 and it's during a time just after the Great Flu where the populations have taken a dive because so many people have died, and basically the laws around childbirth and childbearing become really strict, and it becomes like the God-given duty of women to produce as many children as they can to replace the population, and if they don't give birth within like a year, they're executed for being a witch if they've got like a barren womb. And so the main character, of course, is like, hell nah, and joins a gang to fight back against this. And I just think that this sounds like it appeals to so many more people than I feel are reading it at the moment, so like add this one to your TBR because I'm sure this is going to be a guaranteed good time and it better not let me down when I read it. I think we got through all of the holiday book haul. I had a really good holiday. Can you tell? So let's move on to some of the like random things that I have collected. The first one being the hardcover of The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. I only realised like, I don't know, maybe last year that I actually didn't own a copy of this. I must have borrowed it when I first read it back in the day when it came. When did this come out? Because I feel like I read this years and years and years ago. This came out in 2015. That is a little while ago. I have the hardback of the second book and it's been really bothering me on my bookshelf that I don't have the first book, and somebody on Facebook Marketplace was selling this for a really good price because this is not cheap to currently get, in Australia at least, in hardback, and it's got even the matching, can you see? It's got the matching like deckled edges. That's what this rough cut is called. So I now have the matching duology and I'm absolutely going to plan to reread this because this is one of my favourite retellings of 1001 Nights. There is just so many people that have written it since, but no one has done it better than Renee Ahdieh. This is by far my favourite book I've read by Renee Ahdieh. I'm not convinced she'll ever write anything as good as this. This is just pure genius. The next book I got at a Supernova, which is like a Comic-Con, if that's not something that happens around the world, and that is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. I got this one signed by him. He was really, really lovely. Where is it? He was super, super lovely and gave us a rundown of what the book is about. The tagline for this is "No man is above the law," and I have been wanting to pick this one up for quite a while, but something, let's call it fate, held me back from buying a copy until I saw that he actually had a stall at Supernova and I could go up and get a book signed by him. So that was awesome. This one is set in the Empire of the Wolf and there is a lot of unrest going on. I think we could probably sum this up by saying there's going to be rebels, heretics, and powerful patricians, which are all challenging the might of the imperial throne. So I am expecting stabbiness, death, betrayal, and maybe a really tense romance or something in this. That would make me really happy, but honestly, as soon as you say empire and like challenging for the throne, I'm there. I might just quickly run through the 3 review copies I have to show you. The first one is Out of Breath by Anna Snoekstra. This one is actually Australian crime. It's set in Western Australia, which has me super excited because that is where I live. And I hadn't originally realised it was set in WA, but it's about someone running from their past and then eventually they bump into an American that they fall in love with. Or there's some sort of romance and things unexpectedly start to be dredged up from the past and it's like, will she keep running or will she face it? And I don't read a lot of crime, not a lot of crime like this, but because it's set in WA, I'm actually hoping to read this soon because I get really excited when something's actually set where I live. It doesn't happen very often. The next one is one I am literally so excited for, and it is The Nightship by Jess Kidd. And again, this is some Australian fiction. It is historical fiction set in the 17th century, so 1629, and it is a story based around the Batavia, which is one of the boats that originally sailed to Australia. I have got quite an interest in the fiction that people are writing surrounding some of the famous ships that did sail to Australia, so I'm hoping for good things. This has been pretty well praised so far, so my expectations are pretty high and I'm hoping to read it soon. The tagline for this one says 1 shipwreck, 2 misfits, and 3 centuries apart, so it is a dual timeline as well, so fingers crossed that I love this when I read it. And the last one is the book I'm probably going to be picking up next, if not very, very soon, and that is The Brightest Star by Emma Harcourt. I did get sent an unfinished copy, which I cannot remember if I've already shown to you guys, but this is the finished copy and it is stunning, so I wanted to show it to you again. This is set in Renaissance Italy and again is in my favourite genre of feminist medieval fiction. So we are following a female character in 1496 And I believe she's basically just going to be challenging stuff and getting into trouble and doing really cool stuff and just generally being inspiring. So I think that'll be great. She's tagged, the main character is called Luna, and she's tagged as a woman born out of time, the brightest star of her generation. So maybe she'll be an intelligent woman and all the men will be mad about that, because that would make sense. But obsessed with the cover. Cannot wait to read it. The next books I want to talk about are the books I got in my subscription box with Novelist. Novelist is an Australian subscription box. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I do like to give them a shout out because I actually love their selection so much. They're a quarterly book only box, so they like my jam because I don't like the knickknacks you get with other book boxes. And they give you 4 books per quarter. Some of them are signed occasionally. There's always one that's got sprayed edges. There's something a little bit special about them, but it's also just nice to have sort of a curated selection of usually fantasy books sent your way. In fact, I think it's almost exclusively fantasy books, so I love getting them, and I've actually never got double ups with anything I've bought before, only double ups with books like the special editions of Fairy Loot books I've had, so I think that's a pretty good record so far. But let me show you the books. The first one is In a Garden Burning Gold by Rory Power. I've seen this in quite a few bookstores, so I'm expecting that this absolutely chaotic cover will be somewhat familiar to you if you're a fantasy reader. This one is about Rhea, I don't know how you say that name, Rhea? And her twin brother Lexus, and they have magic and they live in a small unstable country. So Rhea, we're going to call her Rhea. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. She's able to control the seasons and show favour to loyal stewards, and Lexus controls the tides, and I just love it when magic is like linked up with natural stuff. It always makes for like awesome plots. So I think they must have a really long lifespan because it says for 100 years they've been each other's allies. Oh my god, are they gonna fall out? Interesting. So as Rhea and Lexus fight to save their family, they begin to draw very different conclusions about their father's style of rule. So their father is like the bigwig and they're underneath him helping out. So I'm really excited for this one. I actually haven't really read too many reviews about it. No idea what the general opinion is, but I am a keen bean and I really, really like the artwork for this. So I am, yeah, hoping for good things and looking forward to it. I think this next one that came in the box is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, and it's absolutely massive, and that is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. Now, when I say this is massive, I really mean it. It is absolutely mammoth, and it is only like 650 pages. Like, it does look like it's more than that, so I'm not sure. Must be on really thick paper or something. This one is epic fantasy, so it's set in sort of like, I actually read like the first chapter because I was so intrigued. There's just something about this that really drew me in. It seems like a really perfect winter read, and I wouldn't mind picking it up now, but 2 new books, too little time. So 1882, north of Edinburgh on the edge of an isolated loch lies an institution of crumbling stone, where a strange doctor collects orphans with unusual abilities. In London, 2 children with such powers are hunted by a figure of darkness, a man made of smoke. So we have Charlie, who discovers a gift for healing himself through a brutal upbringing in Mississippi, whilst Marlowe, a foundling from a railway freight, glows with strange bluish light. When 2 grizzled detectives are recruited to escort them north to safety, they're confronted by a sinister, dangerous force that threatens to upend their world as they know it. What follows is a journey from the gaslit streets of London to the lochs of Scotland, where other gifted children, known as the Talents, in Kendale Institute and the realm of the dead and the living collide. As secrets within the Institute unfurl, the characters and the rest of the Talents will discover the truths about their abilities and the nature of the force that is stalking them. It sounds amazing. Like, if this is your thing, I think you need to go and get a copy, because I will be reading this year. Like, I don't think I'll be able to resist waiting until the appropriate moment. And what is an appropriate moment anyway? I'll read this when I feel like it. The next one was the special edition in the box, and that is the Stardust Thief, and it has these gorgeous orange papers, which I think is super fun. This one's by Chelsea Abdullah, and this one has just had so many people excited about it. If you're walking in fantasy circles, then you'll probably have seen a lot of people talking about it. This one starts with neither here nor there, but long ago, and the main character is a midnight merchant who's a criminal, and with the help of her djinn bodyguard, she hunts to sell illegal magic. Do you know what? I don't think we need to read more than that. I think that gives us the right vibe as to what this book is about. Illegal magic, and djinn, and just generally fun magic times. Can't wait to read this one. I so hope that I love this as much as I've seen everyone else enjoying it. And the last one is a double up. It's one that Fairy Loot did a special edition of, so one I do have a copy of, and that is City of Dusk by Tara Sim. I plan to probably read from this one rather than my Fairy Loot edition, but it's actually really nice to have the normal edition as well as the special one. If you don't remember, the special one looks like this, so it's got reversed colours. So yeah, I really like Tara Sim. I finished reading one of her books earlier this month, or last month, or just earlier this year, and I thought it was really good, so I'm really hoping for good things from this adult fantasy series that she started. At least I think it's a series. I have no idea. And finally, let's have a look at the books I traded for, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The first one is The Last Beekeeper. This one I really have just seen everywhere. I don't know a lot about it. I did read The Beekeeper of Aleppo last year and loved it, and that's probably somewhat influenced this decision just because there's also bees in the title. This one's set in Pakistan in 1974, and it's actually going to be somewhat of a romance where the main character is split between making a decision to stay in Pakistan with his family or follow his heart back to England. I really hope I enjoyed this one because it looks really pretty, and I'm excited to find out more about what it is about. The next one is one I actually borrowed from the library about 2 years ago, and I didn't get to read it before I had to return it, and so I saw it in the secondhand bookstore where I did the trades for these books, and it is Where the Apricots Bloom by Gina Wilkinson. I just really like the sound of this one, and it's set in Baghdad. We've got like 3 characters here. We've got Huda, Ali, and Rania, and their stories are all going to interconnect. It's going to be about family and friendships, the women, and hidden past spilling into the presents. There's going to be a bit of betrayal going on. I have always been really intrigued by this book, and so when I saw it I just thought, well, I should add it to the bookshelves so that I can finally read it. The last one that I got for trade at the bookstore was The Magician by Colm Tobin. I don't know if that's how you say his name. I bet it's not because it is Irish. I've seen this one everywhere. I was trying to remember where I've seen it. I can't remember if this was a popular book on TikTok, so you have to let me know if you know where this has been popular. This one is set in 1914. I believe it's going to be set in Germany. I don't know much about it other than a lot of people have been enjoying it. I am really intrigued, and I do love that era and that history. I don't think this is going to be so much of a Jewish story rather than just a character who's really conflicted with his love of his homeland and then like coming to terms with what's actually going on in Nazi Germany during that time and like navigating a difficult, like troubled family sort of situation. So I am really intrigued by this one because that's something a little bit different to what I have been reading previously. I have 2 more books to show you. These 2 were purely 2 that I bought, and I got one because I was in the bookstore looking for the other one. So the first one is actually the sequel to The Wolf Den. So that is The House with the Golden Door. As I just finished this one, I really wanted to continue it. This historical saga is actually going to be a trilogy, and the last book hasn't been released yet. Obviously I won't tell you what this one is about because spoilers, but it is absolutely stunning. So the first book was orange, this book is blue, and I cannot wait to see where these characters go next. And finally, I got a hardback edition of a book for all of $7, and it's brand new, and it's one of my favorite books I've read, which is Changeling by Philippa Gregory. You've probably seen me talk about this book before. In fact, this whole series, this is a saga of 4 books, and it is really good. It is set in, I want to say the 15th century, so 1453 in Italy basically, and it's sort of about like the religious crusades at that time, but it is also fantasy, so there's magic going on and all sorts. It's driven by 4 main characters. It sort of feels like 15th century like European history for fans of Ranger's Apprentice. Like I don't know why, but I get that vibe. It's for slightly younger readers, so it's her only YA series that maybe she's done 2 of those. Philippa Gregory usually writes adult historical fiction, and I just love this. So if you haven't read this yet, then I highly recommend it. It's a really good like fantasy adventure where they're traipsing through Italy with all their different agendas and different stuff going on, and the women sort of putting the boys into place, being like, stop being dicks. It's really great. If you haven't read this, I can't recommend this one enough. So those are all the books that I have acquired over the last month. I've had an absolutely prolific book buying month between trades, review copies, and particularly my holiday where I went absolutely bananas book shopping, and I'm so pleased with myself. So let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, but other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.